There seems to be a tendency for the western states in the United States to recently prefer the so-called mail ballot, which means the ballot is sent in a packet to the voter's address, and then the ballot is expected to be returned by mail or by drop-off. And yes, indeed, that does certainly open up many opportunities for coercion, vote buying and selling, which wouldn't have been available if the voters were voting in person in a controlled environment. And that was an agenda of the Democratic Party in Colorado to achieve that. And it's also the case in California and Washington State, Oregon State. Those 4 states have substantial or universal mail ballot, depending. And it has apparently been determined that the risks of coercion and so forth are not as big as the benefits of the convenience to the voter. And actually, there's also a convenience to the election officials who do not have to manage hundreds or thousands of citizens actually running the election process in all those local polling places. So for me, I was not in favor of that transition. And the entire Republican Party in Colorado was against the transition, although now that they've seen that they still get some votes through the mail ballot system, they seem to have agreed to it for the time being. However, the eastern states in the United States tend not to. There's no sign that they're going to adopt universal mail-in balloting. There is, however, the absentee ballot, which is an optional use of the mail, and it is gradually on the increase in the U.S. And so there's a chance eventually the eastern states will adopt. One of the funny things about the 4 states that are using the mail ballot is they also happen to be the legalized marijuana states. And I can't really conclude too much from that correlation, but there is something that, some kind of connection there. So, internet voting is the topic is one of the biggest topics in election policy right now. And there are many, many companies that are popping up attempting to present voting devices, voting equipment, voting methods that use the internet, that use cell phones as an input mechanism, that use blockchains as some kind of a security, I guess you could say, data security mechanism. And many of those are misguided. There's a general understanding among my community of election quality advocates that we do not have the capability of producing an online voting system that would be sufficiently accurate and sufficiently resistant to insurgency or influence, interference by unwanted sources. In particular, one of the biggest problems is identifying the actual voter, which is crucial, that we not have people handing their cell phone to someone else, a coercer, for example, or a vote buyer, who would then be able to make the voter the vote decision and transmit it by internet. There are experiments underway right now in the US where military voters are being allowed to vote by internet. And of course, there's many subsets of what that might mean. It might mean creating a paper ballot image and sending it by email, or it might be that they're voting on what amounts to a direct record electronic touchscreen, except the touchscreen happens to be their computer, which might or might not have a virus in it, which might or might not be affecting the vote. So we have real trouble right now with the desirability of instituting internet voting and trying to resist that for the time being. It will take at least another 10 years before we'll see the likelihood of an internet voting system that would provide the kind of validity, of authenticity that we get from in-person voting, or even with hand-marked paper ballot remote voting, which is what we use in Colorado. It is unlikely we will see a system that is even as good as that over the internet in the next decade or so. But we will see a lot of companies that are offering to provide it. And the blockchain offers no actual advantage to an election system. The issues that relate to election systems are not the one that the blockchain solves. So in election systems, we actually do have an authority which is responsible for managing the process. And the blockchain tends to be a situation where you want to avoid having an authority to manage the process. And yet, it's not suited to the challenges that come up with voting.